And we are live today on yours truly. We're getting serious today because today is no games to play. Speaking of which, let's get it.
Wait. So you even carry a gun in church? What are you, crazy? What do you think is going to happen in church? Who do you think you are, James Bond? Those are the typical responses I get when people find out I carry a gun in church. I've done it for years, and I still do it to this day.
My church has gun carry.
That I would feel the need to carry a gun in church. Maybe this last church shooting in Texas will change their mind.
Today at approximately 11:50 a.m., a gunman entered the West Freeway Church of Christ, White Settlement, Texas, during the church service. Preliminary reports indicated that the man entered the church and fired a weapon. A couple of members of the church returned fire, striking the suspect standing up. Tragically, the person shot by the suspect died at a local hospital, and a second parishioner has life-threatening injuries. As we stated, the suspect is deceased, and the threat has stopped. Thanks to the heroic actions of those two service members, parishioners at the church.
If people were willing to kill people in church, what makes you think you're any safer anywhere else? We've been told for years that gun-free zones make us safe. Yet if no one had a gun in that church, this would be an entirely different story. Yet and still, our politicians keep trying to take our guns. They're the first ones to say that having multiple concealed carry people with guns in a mass shooting would be chaos. I watched the live stream. I saw no less than 4 different people pull their guns, and they weren't shooting indiscriminately, hitting innocent people. But for there being multiple people there with guns, this shooter would have killed way more people. None of these anti-gun politicians actually care about saving lives, because if they did, they'd be praising the people who stopped the shooter. Instead, they're talking about more gun control. Metal didn't wait 2 seconds to exploit the shooting.
You have more ability to make a movie about it, saving the lives of who knows,
and thank them for the lives that they saved. Hell, even Bloomberg used the shooting to push more gun control by tweeting in pertinent part, "We must take action to stop this." What is he talking about? They did take action to stop him. They shot him. The only politician who recognized the people who stopped him was Governor Abbott of Texas, who's also the same governor who's been vocally supportive.
47, almost 50 rounds. Don't need a drum.
Rod without a reel is
40 rounds.
I finished auto quote. Doesn't really do you much good. I love telling people that they got the Congress they voted for.
Right.
Nobody understand?
Congress is out of session until January 7th, but impeachment is still fresh in everybody's minds. Joining us now is Liz Harrington, our spokesperson. Thanks for hanging with us, Liz.
All right, and all right, guys.
More frank and open and hostile than they've been almost anywhere.
Okay.
We've been trying to get together and do a live stream together. Hey, by the way, guys, tell me if super chats are working, because last time we did a stream, they weren't. And I don't know if something's broken, if they've been taken away from me or what. But anyway, so yeah, we've been wanting to get together and do a stream together. And I wanted to talk about this Virginia thing. And I know that that's something, you want to talk about as well, man.
Yeah.
And that, and then we had another thing go down today, where we had a tragic shooting in a church. And, you can't tell from my logo, I'm a Christian. I have a Christian cross in my logo for the channel. And at the church, I carry a gun. And where I live, it's perfectly legal. There are no laws against it. Matter of fact, in my state, there's no laws against carrying a firearm in a bar. And there's no law against carrying a firearm in a bar and having a drink, which a lot of people find surprising. But, I think it's important that folks carry all the time. But let's get into that later. Let's talk about this Virginia thing. What do you say now? So what are your thoughts?
I'll just
kind of start off. I tend to dominate the conversations. So you start off, and I want to look and see if we have super chats or not, because this is driving me nuts.
Super chat.
It's working.
So yeah, so I started paying attention a little bit more when it was kind of clear that Bloomberg was buying seats in the Virginia legislature. And,
Right.
and of course, he's trying to do that all over the country. He's trying to do it here where I live. He's probably trying to do it where you live and where people watching.
Amazing.
Even if they're not aware. But it became apparent that he was having some success.
Hello, and hello.
He had some overwhelming success. He was able to
Going on.
sort of tip the scale, if you will. And, he turned Virginia from being pretty red to
You are now
to
tuning
blue
in.
overnight.
Happy
We've
New
already got
Year's to
another
everyone.
who's, vehemently anti-gun, and he's made no secrets about his wish list of things that he'd like to do, and now he's got a legislature behind him that
Happy
can
New
on
Year.
the paper side. And that's a scary situation. So I think, at that point, we've all started to pay attention. And there's been a lot of talk, a lot of big talk coming from the governor's office, coming from the legislature that we've not heard before. They're being much more frank and open and hostile than they've been almost anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's one thing I thought was weird. Somebody had made a super chat. Thank you guys. Super chat's working, and we greatly appreciate that. We'll try to bring up your super chats where we can. Thank you for the test, the $2 test. So we saw a federal representative, I forget his name, who said some stupid off-the-cuff remark about, well, we have nuclear weapons, when talking about American citizens resisting tyranny with firearms.
Like seriously.
And then we saw the governor, Northam, he actually said that he would use the National Guard to enforce law. Now, there's this little thing called the Posse Comitatus, and the National Guard really blurs the line, because the modern-day National Guard is an extension of the U.S. military. When you join the Guard, you go to boot camp, or what they call it, basic. We call it, I was in the Marine Corps, so we call it boot camp. But you go to boot camp that's federally funded. Most of the vehicles that the Guard units have are supplied by the feds. The weapons are supplied by the feds. The ammunition supplied by the feds. So, and then the Posse Comitatus Act says you cannot use federal forces or federal money to enforce law on civilians in the United States without presidential action. So that means Trump would have to federalize the National Guard and say, go confiscate firearms. If the governor attempts to do that, that's going to cause a constitutional crisis. But they threatened to do it. And then you have the whole dilemma of guardsmen, will they do it or not? Now, some people will cite Katrina, where they had guardsmen going around door to door, taking firearms from people. We had that going on. I've heard conflicting stories as to what really happened. So there's a lot of big questions there, but that's a big threat to make. Because when you say I'm going to use military forces to come kick in your door and take your private property that has not been taken away from you through due process, I mean, there's all sorts of constitutional violations there that that people are rightly upset about. And we've seen massive turnouts at rallies all across the state. And I was just looking, there's a website, if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's called Virginia Citizens Defense League. And we just recently did a t-shirt design where we're donating proceeds from that shirt to these guys, because they're on the front lines there in Virginia. And they have a map up. I'll bring it up here for you guys. I'm just scrolling through the website right now. So right now we have 87 counties and 10 cities and 18 towns that are sanctuary cities, towns, or jurisdictions. That's 87 counties out of, I believe, 95. 87 of them are now sanctuaries, and this in and of itself is going to cause something of a potential constitutional crisis or state crisis, because you have the state legislature saying and the governor saying you can't do that. Law enforcement, if you don't enforce our laws, we're going to arrest you. What, state troopers? What if the state troopers aren't going along with it? The sheriffs are giving them a big middle finger. a lot of local law enforcement, big middle finger. would imagine state police going to give them a big middle finger. So who's going to arrest the law enforcement that are saying, no, we're protecting the citizens. We took an oath of office we take seriously. And no, we're not going to go around taking people's property away, and we're not going to arrest people for having 30-round magazines. Kind of what happened in Colorado, right? That law is completely ignored by law enforcement. It's a joke. You know, people run around public ranges with 30-round magazines, and local law enforcement shoot right alongside of them and laugh. It's right. Just being ignored.
I think where the sheriffs have a bit of an advantage is that they can deputize. They could, in theory, deputize every able-bodied man in their county.
And that's been said.
Yeah, and so
there has been a sheriff that said he will deputize everybody.
And so that, that is a way for them to quickly, enumerate themselves. Whereas the state police, for example, couldn't do that. It would take, even if the money was there and the willingness was there, it would be a slow process. None of that certainly is anything I think anybody wants to see come to fruition. We don't ever want to have to be placing our bets on who's going to win that type of a struggle. But, it is definitely a tinderbox.
It most certainly is, and I kind of liken it to being the next Concord, right? And the whole nation's watching because, and I just threw up a map here of what the state of Virginia looks like right now. The black is not playing ball. They're the ones going with the gun confiscation scheme and these goofy laws, and all those green areas. Those are two-way sanctuaries. Those are counties that have said, no, we're not doing this. So it's important that people realize that the whole nation's watching this. And there was a recent event called the Bundy Ranch incident, and the Bundys completely lost their marbles eventually, but the Bundy Ranch standoff was an important part of American history because in my entire life, I never thought I would see federal agents back down by citizens because I lived through Waco. I lived through Ruby Ridge. I watched what happened when the government just murdered people. And this time we had armed citizens showing up saying, the BLM is taxing without tax authority. They're just calling it, fees. And they keep raising the fees and running the ranchers off BLM land. Well, what's the federal government doing owning 60% of the state anyway? But anyway, so you had the whole Bundy Ranch standoff where federal agents went there to arrest Bundy and to take his cattle. And they just said no. The American citizens put their foot down and said no. And that's exactly what the Second Amendment is for. And it worked. And so you have that precedent, which I never thought I'd live to see. And it gives me hope that Americans will stand up for their rights, that they won't let the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment get flushed down the toilet by Bloomberg and his cronies and these far left loons that want to embrace socialism and communism. And people say, well, the Communist Manifesto said arm everybody. Well, that's not what we got here. Our particular flavor wants to disarm everybody to make you a subject of the crown. And we're citizens, we're not subjects. And if you're going to subjugate us, I would hope we'll fight back. And so we're all watching. I know I'm watching. And I plan to go to Virginia here shortly. I can't make the 20th, unfortunately. But I am going to Virginia. Gun Owners of America are based out of Virginia. I'm going to hang out with them. I'm going to hit some gun stores. I'm going to hang out with some patriots at local firing ranges and gun stores, and going to show some support for what's going on there. And if things go sideways, I'm going to continue to show support. I'm not going to go into details, but it's important that Americans stand up for our rights. And this is a potential tinderbox, but it's also a bit of a looking glass. And I know the federal government's watching this as to what might happen in 10, 20, 30, 40 years as they progress slowly towards their own confiscation schemes and 30-round magazine ban schemes and, whatever else they have up their sleeve, ultimately marching towards the total end of being all guns are illegal. And if you have one, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. So it's important, guys. Please watch what's going on in Virginia. If you can assist, please do. And if things go sideways, I just hope Patriots show up. That's all I'm going to say.
I think I'm usually not very optimistic about things, but I'm optimistic in that if people act, and if they act proportionately and appropriately, at this point in time, that action is emails and phone calls and letters and showing up to meet their legislators and express their position and what they feel they expect from their legislators and things like that. And if enough people are doing that, you'd be amazed how these people will start to back down and start to realize that, okay, come next election time, I might not, I might be looking at a pink slip if I don't back off of it. Right. And I think that's where they should be right now, and they should be doing that in droves. And if they're not able to do that, this is because that's no guarantee. I both know that the nasty little secret to gun owners is they sit on their butts, put their feet up, and expect somebody else to fight the fight. And that includes, unfortunately, hitting the polls when they need to hit the polls. And this is what happens as a result. And so those people hopefully will take this as a sobering wake-up call. So, I liken it to, we in the gun culture and in the self-defense culture and concealed carry culture, we can talk about you can't farm out your self-defense. The protection of yourself and your family is not something that you can farm out to somebody else, be it the police or whomever.
Right.
And the same thing goes for the fight for your rights. And while you should belong to, I think you should belong to every organization that's fighting for the Second Amendment freedoms. They can't be fighting your fight totally for you. You have to be actively involved. You can't just defer that to them. Well, I wrote them a check, so I'm good. I don't have to do anything. You have to do both.
Yeah, I agree. And one super chat, $20. Thank you so much. The world is watching us right now, and I believe that they are. And we've seen a whole lot happen. As we mentioned before, Virginia was a solidly pro-gun state, one of the highest ownerships of firearms in private hands of all 50 states. I mean, it's very much a gun culture there, very much a rural hunting culture, very much a self-defense culture, very much a patriotic culture. I mean, they have 6 Semper Tyrannis on their flag, right? And overnight, because you have a billionaire that's a socialist pumping millions into elections. See, this is a strategic thing that I've been warning about for a while now. The anti-gun movement hasn't seen much success at the federal level. So what they're doing, you have the Bloombergs of the world dumping money and resources into states. Because where they can't succeed at the federal level, they find great success one by one in states. And the fact that they flipped Virginia of all states should be a wake-up call to the other 49. Like, wow, this can happen here in the United States. Now, because of so many people, basically we have a military standoff right now. We have armed patriots in Virginia saying, taking them, come get them, and we have the politicians that were threatening in the beginning, we're going to roll the tanks, we're going to squash you like bugs. Now they're saying, oh, but okay, well, you know what, look, we don't really want to confiscate anything, we just want to register stuff. And everybody with 2 brain cells to rub together knows that registration leads to confiscation. Tell them you got it, then they know exactly where to come when they got the votes. And so you're seeing this ebb and flow and give and take. And they are taking notice because I think politicians are slowly starting to realize we're not kidding. What people say on the internet and what patriots are saying at gun counters across America and they're, at Christmas dinner across the dinner table. Conversations aren't tongue in cheek. And politicians are starting to realize that there might be very real consequences to their actions. It's not just a simple matter of being voted out. They could start civil unrest. They could start, if the worst thing that could happen is something I don't want to see, civil war. But that Virginia could be the tinderbox that starts it all. This is like the Cold War. You know what I mean? It's like you have 2 sides that are ready to go, and we're just waiting to see who blinks. And it's a dangerous game we're playing, and I don't want to play it. I would just rather these politicians pull their heads out of their keisters and realize, the Constitution is a real thing, and it needs to be. It doesn't mean just Article 1 and Article 9. It means the whole darn document. And anything short of that is tyranny, and that makes you a traitor to the Constitution, in my humble opinion. But we do have super chats going, guys. Thank you so much for the super chats. It helps tremendously. I'm trying to scroll through all the comments here. I'm going to throw up the super chats so folks can read them. Are you going to VA on January 20th? So we start off the video. I said that there was really bad timing on their part to pick the 20th because the entire gun community is traveling then. That's when SHOT Show's going on. I already have plane tickets and hotel reservations that are non-refundable, but I will be in Virginia after the 20th. And it's on a Monday, and it's on the 20th, just days before the biggest industry event and what we do for a living. So that was just bad timing, but I will be there. And we'll let you guys know on the channel, on our Facebook page, and especially our Patreons and our YouTube members. We will let you guys know where we're going to be, and we'll make arrangements to meet with folks. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Hi, Mac. Hi, Justin. Thanks, man. We appreciate that. Just going through trying to see if I gotta make sure I get all the super chats, and then I gotta super chat. We'll try to grab some comments here, but then I'm gonna talk about this church shooting. I'm gonna try to keep it to about an hour or a little less, so we keep people's attention. Money is powerful, but it's not as powerful as the collective voice. Stand together. The Gadsden stake should be updated to 50 rattles. I agree. We and that's from the Daily Shooter. Another channel you guys should check out. We do have to stand together. And Justin, you kind of touched upon this, and this is something I think it's critical for people to understand. And I've said this before in video. When a Republican sits at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, gun owners go to sleep. They just assume the Republicans are going to save them. The 89 import ban, Republican. The 86 machine gun ban, Republican. We had the 94 assault weapons ban under Clinton, but it sunset in 10 years, and it went away. In my lifetime, Republicans have passed and signed into law more anti-gun laws than the Democrats. Now, that's not to say I'm a Democrat or I'm saying go vote for Democrats. That's not for a lack of trying on the Democrats' part. That's because when a Democrat sits at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, gun owners spring to life. They panic buy and they vote. They rally in front of their state houses. They rally in D.C. They come to life. But when a Republican takes office, they go to sleep. Like you said, they kick their shoes up and they go, "Yep, we got this for 4 years. We're going to do nothing." When Trump took office, first of all, he lied. He's done nothing his entire administration. He's done more anti-gun stuff than Obama did in 8 years, more like 3 years in his term. And I'm not saying don't vote for Trump. Stop saying that. That's a mindless argument. What I'm saying is hold him accountable. Send him emails saying, "Look, you promised this. Keep your promises. You wanted our vote. You told us this. Keep your promises." He's keeping his promises elsewhere, but he's not keeping them to us. Hold him accountable. Stop being a sheep and just voting for an R or a D. That's how we got here. That's how we lose our rights. Hold these Republicans responsible for their actions and their lives. So anyway, but we got to stop this whole thing of people just going to sleep when a Republican has power. But we had the White House when Trump came.
I don't know a little about politics. How it works, buddy. Still got to answer to certain individuals. Trust me. Like a job. The boss tells you to do something. You got to do it. Some people think that he doesn't answer. That's why. You got certain lines that can't be crossed. Like things on both sides. Bipartisan.
Congress is out of session until January 7th, but impeachment is still fresh in everybody's minds. Joining us now is Liz Harrington, RNC spokesperson. Thanks for hanging with us, Liz. We had that breaking news on Boeing. You were very gracious with your time.
Absolutely.
Is impeachment good for you?
Right.
You look at what's happened in the polls. The Democrats are going down the more they pursue it, and that's when they control the situation in the House. They don't control the situation in the Senate. So I'm thinking that as the impeachment trial gets going, it's going to be even worse for Democrats.
Absolutely. It's a complete disaster that Nancy Pelosi has done with her caucus by backing them into a far left corner. They never had the facts, they never had the evidence, but they could control the process, and it was so rigged, and yet this is the best they have. The best they have.
Texas authorities giving an update on the deadly church shooting at the West Freeway Church of Christ near Fort Worth, Texas, that left 2 people dead. Let's listen in.
This will be the first press conference. We anticipate having another one around 4:30 to 5, that area, which then we can answer more questions. But in this first one, the chief is going to give you a statement, and there'll be no questions in this first press conference. So, Chief Bevering.
Good afternoon. I'm Chief Bevering, White Summit Police Department. First of all, I want to give my condolences out for all the parishioners and the the parishioners at the church and our community. We're all hurting right now, and I just want your prayers for everybody at this time. Today will just be a brief statement about what's going on so far. At this time, we just want to tell the community that there is no ongoing threat to this incident. So today at approximately 11:50 a.m., the government entered the West Freeway Church of Christ, White Settlement, Texas, during the church service. Preliminary reports indicated that the man entered the church and fired a weapon. A couple of members of the church returned fire.
And then we go to church
striking the suspect
and pray to God without worrying about
tragically the person
illegal gunmen. Illegal
has life
crime
injuries. As we stated, the suspect is deceased, and the threat has stopped. Thanks to the heroic actions of those two
we the citizens,
the parishioners at the church. While the resources, or with the resources available with the Texas Rangers and DPS, they will be leading this investigation.
Right.
If we have additional information, we'll release it to the media and the public. In the meantime, like I said, we just ask for your thoughts and prayers for our community and the parishioners of the West Freeway Church of Christ.
Another mass shooting prevented. That's what the story is about. It's about the mass shooting that was prevented in Texas again.
Echo the chief's
A
comments
nut
for the entire community.
indiscriminately fired and did not care who he was going to shoot.
Dedicated significant resources to aid in this investigation. Those are investigative resources and technical resources. We are working very hard to find motive, to get to the bottom of what happened. We're working very closely with the victims.
Has his motive, his daddy is
we will continue to provide partnership and resource support throughout this. As you see from the group assembled behind me, an incident like this does not get solved, and we don't get to the bottom of it without significant partnership with the Fort Worth Police Department, White Settlement Police Department, obviously the Texas DPS, and the FBI working together in concert to find justice for these victims.
Amazing.
So I'd like to introduce Jeff Williams, the Regional Director of Texas DPS for North Texas.
Texas.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Williams. I'm the Regional Director of Texas DPS.
2 dead, including guns.
Special Agent Charge Arnold said, I'd like to echo those same sentiments.
Including gunmen.
Go out to the victims and their families.
West Freeway Church?
Take a moment today just to
Fort Worth, Texas.
We have a enormous response here today to get to the bottom of what occurred. The resources that represent
the dumbest thing you could do is try to get into a shootout
inside the
church inside of Texas.
Unfortunately,
the literal dumbest thing you can do.
So many of
that's like trying to get into a shootout in DC. God damn it, dude! There's a police on every street. You live here.
We terrible situation, especially during the holiday season. I would like to point out that we have a couple of
you're not
heroic.
You're not thinking.
Stop short of just anything that you could even imagine.
And say another individual
our hearts
was faced with a heavy epidemic,
as well.
that there are no consequences for
This is
my
an ongoing
actions
investigation. We don't have
inside
all
of
the
your
answers. I'm sure there are a
psychology.
bunch of them out there right
Once
now.
this psychology is
We
born
will continue to
inside
turn
of
over every
society,
rock so that we can get to the bottom of
this
what
is
occurred.
what happens.
I want to
No
thank
consequences
you for your
for your
support.
actions. So when
and
you
getting the message
express
out that
these
there is no
actions
threat to the public. We want everyone
onto
to know that
innocent
we are
human
at the
beings,
bottom of this. And as soon as
consequences
we have
come
some
your way,
information, we'll pass that along.
and that consequence
And
may
I'd
be
like
above.
to introduce the Tarrant County.
Just reiterating what you already
See,
heard.
we knew when we did
Today,
wrong, we got asked.
prayers and thoughts.
So we knew
the
consequences
folks over here at the church and the people
came
that
with
are
our
lost.
actions.
But today, evil walked boldly among us.
That's
Let me
it.
remind you,
Evil walked
good people
boldly among
it stopped it.
the church. Do you hear me?
I know we're not taking any questions. There'll be a further brief
They
later.
didn't say
But,
terrorist
a lot of
attack.
resources to bear. Everybody's involved. We will get to the bottom of it. Thank you.
We're gonna handle this one.
I've
Do
been
you
there
hear me?
living paycheck to paycheck.
And I still struggle.
Yeah, you would come up in my church with that mess. I know who's on. We have police in my church. You know, like once we seen this mess, we ain't gotta worry about that. Security and police are. In the name of Jesus. Can't happen everywhere. Sorry. Man, amazing. 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 Just what's going on nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. Protect your families. Protect your church on Sunday. Of course, it's gonna happen on Monday. Yesterday was Sunday. And welcome, 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 welcome. Yeah. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. All things considered,
Amazing people that are, I mean, they live at Legislative Hall when legislature is in session, and they are, always on. And it's important to support those organizations if you live in that state. Because those numbers mean something. When they can say, I represent X number of people, that number carries weight.
Absolutely does. Absolutely does. And I know that a lot of folks have become kind of jaded. They think that our system doesn't work for them anymore. They think their vote doesn't count. And then you have people even making arguments like, well, let's get rid of electoral college. No, that's how you get a democracy. And we don't want a democracy. All these idiot politicians. What's that?
I wish we had electoral college at the state level.
Exactly. People don't understand the importance of the electoral college and the brilliance our founders had in establishing that. It gives voice to Montana, Wyoming, and the rural areas. If you abolish the electoral college, that gives you a democracy, and that means the population centers run the politics of the entire country.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here, Direct Veteran 8888. We've got another Gun Gripe episode for you today. I realize that we haven't been putting out quite as many gun gripes. We've been concentrating on hopefully what is a little bit more fun content, although I know that these videos are pertinent and people enjoy watching them. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to put out gun gripes and everything like that. So today's gun gripe is going to be called, They Don't Make Them Like They Used to. And they don't. Well, they don't. Now, there's definitely
Well,
some
they don't.
exceptions to that rule. But what we mean by that is, I'm pretty sure you've always heard, whether it's some old guy at a gun store or some old timer, maybe your grandpa, or your dad, or somebody. They just don't make things like that. They don't make a lot of things like they used to, but in today's video, though, we're going to be talking exclusively about firearms. Yeah, about firearms. There are many things that adage can apply to cars and any other multitude of things, but we're going to talk about firearms, early models versus late models.
If you ever heard that phrase.
Some that might not be so awesome. So we're not definitely here to throw any kind of company under the bus or anything like that. That is not the goal of this video. All the firearms you see here, we own personally. We haven't borrowed these guns, so we can say what we want. Pretty much. The thing is, like Eric and I've been talking about the past few weeks, and we've gone out, we've bought several new firearms, like literally right off the shelf, or if they didn't have them, it's just one that we wanted to get in. Like for example, we'll talk about later, but I bought a 1022 takedown recently, and I have to say, that kind of got the whole topic started on the quality of these new guns. It's like new guns on the shelf, for the most part, they're kind of hit or miss, which is kind of a sad state of affairs. Sure. Well, any company can make a limit, and we certainly don't want to make it sound like, oh, well, if it's older, it's automatically awesome. Right. That's not the case. A company can still make a crummy gun. A good 1800s. A good way to compare it to, if you're not, if you're watching this video, you're a gun person, but if you're not, like Fender, for instance, like old Fender guitars. Those guitars, like an old 60s era Stratocaster, was assembled by some bored housewife. And it popped off an assembly line just like anything else. I mean, Fender spit out some lemons back in the day. Just because a Strat is made in 61 or 62, it's an old Stratocaster, doesn't mean it's a good guitar. It just means it's old. And firearms are the same way. Just because a firearm's old doesn't mean it's necessarily good. So since you were talking about the 1022, let's talk about the old one I've got here. Okay, so Aero's got this really nice old 1971 produced 1022 carbine. And these 1022s, I mean, Ruger has made over 5 million of these things. I mean, this is probably, I don't know, even this Model 60 or the most. It's like the Walmart of guns. Pretty much. That's what it is. It's like the generic 22 gun of guns. Like, I don't know any better way to explain it. I can't tell you how many countless rounds Eric and myself put through 1022s. And I mean, I own several, Eric owns several, but, when I bought that 1022 takedown recently, I was a little bit appalled by the quality. Sure, it's takedown. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated to produce, with the extra components and such. But I mean, on the bottom of, I'll show it to you in a minute here, but on the flat that the takedown assembly actually resides on, it's threaded for this takedown assembly that retains the latch to actually take the gun down. It is cut off square from the dovetails for the sights. So basically, in essence, the takedown assembly is good, but the sights are crooked. I mean, you look down the barrel and the sights are just. I mean, you look at my takedown, the sights are straight, but on my takedown, you look at the front sight post, and where they drove the front sight in, there's this nasty piece of like sharp metal hanging out of the front sight where they didn't even bother to deburr it or anything. Yeah. It's just cramming them together as quick as they can. Now, one thing I'll say about the Ruger 1022, it has always been and will always be a budget 22 rifle. It is. And things have to change throughout the years in order for a large company like Ruger to keep that cost down. Like on the 71 issue, and even on my like late 90s model, this was the first 22 that I ever bought myself. That has a metal trigger guard, so it's got like an alloy cast trigger guard. It's got a metal barrel band. On the new guns that they're putting out, they've got polymer groups. They've got polymer barrel bands. And they're just cutting costs a little bit. The woods, unless you buy a nice exclusive model or something like that, most of the woods are going to be kind of like cheap birch. Or maybe, I don't know, you might get lucky and get beechwood or not. Some of the nicer models might still have walnut and whatnot. But, it's just, we just have this kind of, I don't know, we kind of gravitate to the classic guns because in a lot of sense, they're a little bit higher quality than what you get nowadays. Well, this particular gun does utilize walnut stock, very high quality walnut stock. Now, some folks will tell you, okay, an older Ruger 1022 is going to be a better shooter than a new one. Some people will tell you the new ones are better. Here's my experience on it. The older ones are certainly made better. And just when it comes down to fit and finish, the quality of the components went into the gun. The older 1022s are better, and many people will say that the quality's gone downhill ever since. I personally look at the plastic trigger guard. Okay, are you going to use the gun as a club to beat some? Well, don't answer that, but you're not going to. It's not a war. It's not a soldier's infantry rifle. Okay, it's a reasonably priced semi-automatic 22. Okay, so the polymer trigger guards that are in them nowadays actually do lend themselves better to things like aftermarket triggers, aftermarket hammers, aftermarket pins. Aftermarket parts drop into the new polymer groups a lot easier. Some of the people, like if you're trying to put a new trigger in like this 71, you might run into some minor fitment issues.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, from what I understand, why Ruger did switch to a polymer group, not only to save on cost, but also they can control the tolerances better with a polymer group, because the castings and such, depending on who was doing the castings or whatever, when they pulled them out, how they cooled, they're all going to be slightly different.
How thick they're painted.
Yeah, so they're all going to be slightly different tolerances, which, you know, I've got an engineer friend over at Ruger, and he says they literally have bins of parts on older guns. They just have to kind of, you know, pick and choose. Oh, here this sear fits. Oh, this pin fits.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. But this gun here is a late 90s model that I purchased. It's just a regular, I think like a 20 or 21 inch stainless barrel. And this was my first 22 rifle I ever bought. And it's got an alloy group and everything. And I've never really changed anything other than adding a rubber bolt buffer, you know, just to quiet the action down and keep it from beating itself to death.
Sure.
But on my new takedown, I bought this Lipsy's exclusive model because I wanted the stainless model that was threaded with the pepper laminate stock. And I didn't notice it at first. When I picked the gun up, everything was hunky-dory, took it out, shot it, ran my suppressor on it. Okay, so, you know, you pull the gun apart and whatnot, change out some components, and this thing is heavily modified. I mean, I've put a kid group in here, I've put a kid scope rail on it and whatnot, a few other odds and ends. I really like the kid stuff. I had to get myself a little aluminum barrel band just to make it kind of classy, a little bit of classy appeal to it. But when I got this little Vortex razor on here and I started looking down and trying to sight it in, I'm thinking, man, something looks crooked. Sights. And I pulled this whole thing apart and I measured it, and it is off by about 4 degrees, and it's noticeable.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm SBR in this thing, so I'm not really concerned with it. But if I was just a regular Joe Blow consumer, I would be on the phone with Ruger and be like, what the heck?
People see me on the street in my community, they wave at me, they know me as Mitch the insurance guy. Acceptance insurance means that it's okay to make a mistake. And it matters because we have a lot of our customers with bumps and bruises on their garbage record. They didn't think they could get a good rate anywhere. They didn't know how insurance works. They need a home. They need a place to go. Acceptance means we will accept you. I want them to have credit before you come to me.
Serve hero and villain alike, and carries with it moral responsibility. To understand the gun is to better understand history.
History.
1938, a powerful and fearsome wave was about to envelop all of Europe. For the second time this century, the German army, the Wehrmacht, was on the move. The soldiers of the Third Reich advanced across the continent and beyond, armed with menacing weapons which became frighteningly familiar by sight, sound, and name. Luger, Mauser, Walter, the German small arms of World War II.
Mouse. Those are guns that we wrote today. And then turn around and use them against each other. Interesting.
They were some of the most well-crafted weapons the world has ever seen. They were used by one of history's most feared armies to further the aims of one of history's most evil men. A man who helped rebuild the German military in less than 2 decades. It had begun in the bitter ashes of the First World War. On November 11th, 1918, guns fell silent. The German Wehrmacht had surrendered in humiliating defeat.
So, wow.
The Versailles Treaty in 1919 further humiliated Germany by severely limiting the manufacture of small arms that could supply a future army. That army would be limited to less than 100,000 men. The Treaty of Versailles, which was signed after the end of World War I, forced the German army to become a very small number of soldiers. They had to get rid of all their heavy equipment. They basically had to start over, a lot of which they did in secret. But they kept the cadre of the NCOs and the officers and the men who were going to formulate the doctrines and ideas that would allow them to rebuild that army very quickly and become the most effective fighting force on the planet. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became chancellor of a country that was near collapse. Millions of Germans were unemployed. Hitler promised jobs, prosperity, and a return to greatness. He disregarded the Versailles Treaty and ordered that the production of weapons be resumed. The rest of the world stood by, unwilling or unable to stop the emergence of the Third Reich. The great weapons factories of Germany began belching smoke. Mauser, TWM, Schmeiser, Loba. The manufacturing genius of the nation was in full production. The Wehrmacht was rearming. Germany flexed its muscles and began annexing neighbors without firing a shot. In March 1938, Austria became part of the Third Reich. German troops paraded through the streets of Vienna. As the war machine geared up, the weapons of the past were born again.